Please be seated. Okay, so I have a question, and this is a call out from where you are question. What time did you end your Seder last night? Anybody call out? What time did you end your Seder? 10. Midnight. That's my mother, by the way. Where 10:30? What else we got? When Elon started to yell, love it. All right, we're doing our good pedagogy, and we are meeting our children exactly where they are. Any other times? All right, so I have a question for you. We have in the Magid section of our Seder, right when we start out with this beautiful idea that we were slaves and we're about to go free from Egypt. And then very quickly, we get to a place where we are talking about the 4 children. And the 4 children, I mean, come on, who can resist the 4 children? You could spend hours talking about the 4 children. They're just so wonderful. And right in the middle of all of that are squished these 5 random rabbis. Anybody actually do that part at your Seder? It's pretty skippable. Many people do not take this. If you look at the Magid map that Hadar puts out, and you're not one of those read every single word in the Haggadah Seders, you might not have seen this last night. So why am I drawing your attention to it now? Because I think as we are preparing for our Seders tonight, there is a really beautiful, or maybe 2 or 3 really beautiful lessons that we can glean from these 5 rabbis that make it worth your time tonight at your Seder to stop in between these 2 highlights and look at them. Why? All right. Let's begin together. So first of all, we learn that once Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon reclined at a Seder in Bnei Brak, and they told of the exodus from Egypt all that night until their students came in and said, "Teachers, it's time for the saying of the Shema of the morning. It's come. We're done." All right. When did they end their Seder? Just shout it out. Is that a short Seder? Is that a just the facts, ma'am Seder? No, that is a Seder where you get every syllable and every song, perhaps. All right, I want you to take a look at this picture that's right here. This picture is from a Haggadah that was published around 1928, 1929. And when you think of our ancient rabbis, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Akiva, when you picture Rabbi Akiva, do you picture him looking like this? Why not? Okay, why not? Well, he was living a lot longer ago than the black hats and kippot there. What might you picture? What do you see when you look at that? Do you see people who are very, very much, did I hear Hasidim? Yeah, right? You actually have, in this photo, there are actually the famous rabbis of that time, of the modern time, that are sort of transported back in history with all of their garb to show rabbis who are very, very frum. Like, these are the people who are the most into their Seder of anyone who could possibly be into their Seder. And do you notice what the guys who are coming in to interrupt them to say, "Hey, it's morning, time to go"? What are they carrying? Their talit, right? These are guys for whom davening right away in the morning is a part of who they are. This is about ritual. This is about being so caught up in a ritual that the sun is shining outside. Now, how do we know this? The text immediately before it says, and even if we were all wise, all intelligent, all aged, all knowledgeable in the Torah, still the command would be upon us to tell of the coming out of Egypt. For the more that one tells of the coming up from Egypt, the more admirable it is. What do we learn from this? Mishael Tzion, who was just here, wrote in his Haggadah. The Haggadah now recounts the story of the longest Seder ever, a model for our own Seder. Perhaps what we can learn from this story is to take joy in the length of our Seder, to go long and strong and give every piece its due. Do not rush. The question should not be, as Mishael Tzion said, when do we eat? But rather, what is the spiritual sustenance that we might find at that Seder? Ah, how lovely. And if we just ended right there, you would have what kind of a message for your Seder? You'd have a message that, tonight, no matter how late you were up last night, time to do it again and find more meaning, bring more joy, bring more focus, do it long and strong. Okay, it's a good message. But if we dig deeper into the 5 rabbis, it turns out that may not at all be what they were about. This may be an answer to a question that many of us may have been wondering about, and many of us may have confronted at our Seder last night. How much do you dare to talk about the events, the politics, and the problems of our time? How much at your Seder should you open up the conversation to say, what are you thinking about what's going on now? And what are you going to do about it? What do you guys think? It's like if you're running a Seder, is it easy to open up the Seder to the comments, to the problems of our time? We were at a very mixed political Seder last night. Hard to have that kind of conversation, right? All right, well, guess what? Perhaps this very story is put exactly in this place to tell us that it is exactly the events of our time, that the story of the Exodus from Egypt is meant to evoke in us, is meant to inspire in us. How so? Turn the page. All right. We know from historical accounts that these 5 rabbis actually were not just 5 random rabbis. They are 5 rabbis who are well known for having supported the Bar Kokhba revolt. These are 5 rabbis who were so passionate about the political events of their time, about resistance to the Roman Empire, that they came together on Seder night. And it says they may have even been planning the revolt in Bnei Brak, Rabbi Akiva's home base, using the Exodus from Egypt as a code for freedom from Rome. This subterfuge shielded the Jewish activists from Roman spies and Roman curiosity, allowing them to claim, hey, we're just talking about a symposium from a time long ago when our people were going forth from Egypt. In other words, how much do you think they looked like these Hasidic Rebbes, getting great joy and nachas from every syllable and every song? Not so much. What were they doing? They were saying, hey, we got a problem. And our problem today is so real that this story of the Exodus that we're telling at our table actually is a model for us not to wait just for God's redemption, but to act in our time. Does that change your sense of what your task at your Seder might be? Right? Maybe our task at our Seder is to look at our story of the Exodus from Egypt and ask, well, what does that mean that they went free? What kinds of values do we need to implement in our time? If you were a slave and you have to see yourself as if you had gone out from Egypt, what does that demand of you in our time, in our place, now? Perhaps this Seder is meant to be a vehicle for thinking not only deeply about our time, but acting in this moment, coalescing together with people at your table to try to say, if I see injustice, let me come together with you to try to fight against that injustice, not just here at our Seder table, but tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. Wow. Okay. But that's one way to see it. Turns out that there's a whole other paradigm of a Seder, and it comes to us from the Tosefta. It's easy to do when everybody agrees around the table on exactly what the issue of the day is. Cool, let's come together. Let's do revolution. Let's stand for justice. Let's stand against oppression. Let's lean in one direction, all together. But the Tosefta tells us that there was a mirror Seder. It actually has almost exactly the same words to describe it, but the people at that Seder are doing a very different thing. Once, Rabbi Gamliel and the elders were reclining in the house of Bothus ben Zunin in Lod. They were involved in the laws of Pesach the whole night until the rooster crowed. Their students raised the covering of the windows in front of them. They convened and went to the house of study and said, "What is the blessing of the Passover sacrifice?" How's this story different? What do we see that's different here? In Rabbi Akiva's story, we are focused on the going out from Egypt as a template for who we should be in the world afterwards. At Lod, at the Seder in Lod, what are they focused on? The ritual, the laws, right? They're not using the Seder as a revolutionary force. They are using the Seder simply to dig deeper into the halachic rules, into the status quo of their time. Guys, do you know people like this? Some people who want to take our Seders and use them to foment and to solidify our senses of political action to the events of our time. And some people who say, it's a Seder. Let's just do the Seder. Come on, manishtana, what's different this night? There's no answer in there. What's different in this night is that we need to be talking politics, just be polite and carry on. There's another interesting challenge here. If you look at the pictures here, you see two very different pictures of each of these Seders. In one photo, this is from the special Sinai edition of the Haggadah. What are they doing here on this side of the page, on the left side? They are... Do they look like they're studying a lot of their texts? No. They're using their Seder as this pretext. They're using their Seder as an opportunity to dig deep, to come close. You notice how close they are to each other in terms of value setting for their community, using the story of the Exodus to talk about freedom, and indeed the fact that it is the Sinai edition here that uses this photo, right? What is that about? We don't wait for God, we go in. We do ourselves. We make the action happen. And on the other side, we have Bothus's lovely, decorous Seder. Right there, right? Doesn't that look beautiful? A lovely feast. We're calm, we're quiet. Everyone is doing the rituals that they need to do. And in fact, behind them, it says that Rabbi Gamliel teaches us 3 things that you have to say at your Seder. These are the laws, Pesach, Matzah, and Maror, and we have them here. So if you look with me at the very last text here, this Seder story has all the earmarks of a meeting of those Jews who opposed another revolt against the Roman rule. One Seder, they're plotting. The other Seder, they're opposed. First, the attendees, Gamliel, the elders, were members of the aristocracy, what we might call today political conservatives. Second, they're meeting in the city of Lod, which was a commercial center. Third, they reclined at the house of Bothus, a very wealthy Jewish merchant with a Greek name, a sign of his cross-cultural contacts. Finally, they're not discussing the exodus from Egypt as a code for revolt, but the laws of Passover, an indication that their concern was inwardly focused on the laws of Passover. And what do we take away from this according to Rabbi Emmanuel Gold? In the 2nd century, for the Akiva faction, the Exodus story symbolized the struggle for freedom from Roman oppression. For the Gamliel faction, the Seder was a gathering of the leaders who defended the status quo. Now, why do I bring you this today? Because this is not about a long ago Seder, too long ago differing groups of people who set up their Seders in very different ways. This is about our time. This is about you right now. Do you know people, or are you a person who believes really strongly that if we do not use our Seder to come to the root of what it means for us today to be free, what it means for us in our time right now to stand as people who were oppressed and look out for the oppressor, one who says, halach ma'anya. Do you know, or are you a person who says, oh guys, there's so much going on in this world right now. The story of the Exodus is a story that we repeat generation to generation to generation to teach us about continuity, of consistency in this world where we don't have pattern recognition from one day to another. Let's sing these songs because they remind us of consistency. They remind us we are part of a people. Or perhaps you have people at your Seder who are on the side of Rabbi Akiva politically, and others at your Seder who are Gamliel folks. So, are we doomed to just have separate Seders? To just say, okay, if you think that, there's your Seder over there. Or if you think that, there's your Seder over there. Well, perhaps not, because our Seder has a pedagogical hook that gives us an invitation that comes immediately after. And I mentioned it before, the 4 children. We don't leave this story of the 5 rabbis where they are. And by the way, just to note, our Haggadah did not give us both of those stories. It gave us one of those stories, expressing perhaps a clear opinion about the role of the events of our day in our Seder times now. And it is followed by the 4 children. What do the 4 children teach us? That the conversations may be hard. But guess what? Rabbi Akiva and the 5 rabbis who were plotting over there all by themselves, their revolution failed. Rabban Gamliel, all by himself, that ritual was nice for those who did the ritual, but many did not go with them. The only way to be able to have a successful Jewish community and connection is not to leave those 2 Seders separately, but to bring them together through the pedagogy of the 4 children, the 4 children who teach us that we have to find the conversation starters to make a conversation between the 5 Akiva rabbis and the 5 Gamliel rabbis of our time possible. So how do we do that? Well, Hadar has prepared this really cool sheet right here, and I wanted to give it to you to take home to your Seder tonight, to open up the tension points, the places where we are not going to agree, where someone at our Seder is going to say, that's not okay with me. Because when we use these questions, we can start to hear each other and bridge between these 2 separate Seders. So here they are. Tell me more, right? That's a simple question. Tell me more. I notice. I wonder. Is there another way of understanding that? If we ask that question, you might actually be there until morning Shema. Because, so what I understand you saying is, and reflect and repeat with someone. And then there are a few other beautiful questions, but the last is, one question that I'd like to talk about is, because our Seder is about asking questions, it's also about making room for other people's questions. It's about forming a place where we can do both, focus on the Exodus from Egypt and the themes of freedom, and bring in the continuity and consistency of a tradition that lifts us all up. My friends, tonight at your Seders, try these questions. And when you try these questions, you will be fulfilling the reason they put those 5 rabbis there, to remind us that perhaps we may not be able to resolve the conversation, but we are absolutely not free to desist from it. Be brave, reach out. May you have wonderful conversations at your Seders tonight. Chag Sameach.